welcome to the Eclectic Collection. Today is episode 38. It's all Greek to me. There are quite a few Greek gods, and mythology is just something that I've always thought was cool and been interested in. Read the book years ago, English class like probably everybody else did, and I just always thought it was neat, the stories that went behind them. So I'll talk a little bit here and there about some of the more popular and specific ones as we go along in some episodes. But I thought it would be nice to start from the very beginning as to who is who, literally, or who is whom, in this scenario, because we have Greek gods and Roman gods, and even though they're the same person, a lot of people get them confused. I feel like the Greek is more popular, but the Roman sometimes can be interchangeable, and just who is who in the story. It's a who's who of gods, if you will, little g, and talking about that, what they are known for, and maybe some things that go with them in terms of icons and what their famous background is. So I think I first got hooked with Clash of the Titans back in I think it was 1980, Burgess Meredith and Harry Hamlin. Although they have remade that, I think Sam Worthington, and it's okay, it's cool. I'm not gonna lie, but I really dug the original better. So if you like Clash of the Titans, or that was kind of neat to you, I find myself saying "Unleash the Kraken" all the time when somebody's angry that I'm in the room with. There's just a lot of characters that come into play. So these are really just focusing on the gods that lived in Mount Olympus, above the Ethereum, as they like to call it, which was considered the heavens. So Zeus, of course, we kind of start there. Zeus is a.k.a. Jupiter in the Roman, so I'll be giving the Greek first and then the Roman. So Zeus is known as Jupiter in Roman world. God of the sky, he's the chief deity, and the lightning bolt and the eagle are generally symbols of his. So when you think of the whole like crashing lightning, it's usually Zeus. He was the king, if you will, of the gods, the chief god. Hera, his sister, we'll talk more about that later, also known as Juno, typically known for women, marriage, and childbirth. Athena, also known as Minerva, was the goddess of war, handicraftsmanship, that's quite a word, practical reasoning. You might say she was the MacGyver of the situation, or the MacGyveress, as the case may be, because following her up is Ares, a.k.a. Mars, and also the god of war and spirit of battle. So he'd be the war cry, if you will, as well as the actual reasoning behind the war, but she would be more handling the actual war. So they make an interesting couple. Aphrodite, which in Roman terms would be Venus, love, beauty, and all things of the fairness of people, if you will. Apollo, known as Phoebus in Roman times, divine distance, meaning making mortals aware of their guilt. He was just the person that made you kind of have a conscience and think about what you may have done correctly or not. And a lot of times he was the intermediary between mortals and Mount Olympus. He sort of spoke for the people and translated, if you will, into God speak, and then the gods would relay a message to him, and then he would speak in a way that mortals could understand. Then we have Helios, also known as Sol, as in not just that cool little Kia vehicle with the hamsters, but no. Helios, meaning sun. He's the sun god, also known as a Titan, one of the bigger gods, Titan meaning large. He generally was known as a chariot wielder who would go from east to west every day, often in a big chariot, like pulling a big cup that he would stand in. So when you say of a heliocentric universe, the same idea appeals that a sun-centered universe, which took them a long time to come upon because people thought the Earth was flat. People thought that the universe revolved around Earth. All not true, despite what some people may still argue. Following that up was Artemis. Artemis, also known as Diana, she was the goddess of hunting, wild animals, vegetation, and chastity. It's quite a conglomerate of things there, and they're sort of all over the place, but the hunt, if you will, that's really the big key there. Selene Also known in some circles in Roman as a different Diana, but also known as Luna, which makes more sense to me because Luna, based on the Latin, is moon, and she's the moon goddess. Typically worshipped during new and full moons, but some name crossover there. But again, I would go with Luna because obviously that, even in Spanish and Italian, would equate to this day. Hermes, he's quite the character, also known as Mercury. Very big list for him: luck, wealth, languages, travel, sleep, which makes no sense to me, but okay. um, Track, as in not just the sport, but also tracking. No accident that the FTD floral people use the winged foot to say that you could track their package and get the flowers there faster. He's also the patron of shepherds. He is the patron of thieves, and he invented the lyre, Lyre, not your liar, as in not telling me the truth, but the musical instrument. And he was the messenger of Mount Olympus. So that winged foot came into play because he was always racing so fast back and forth to and fro Mount Olympus because he was delivering the messages from the gods. So he had quite a big laundry list of things that he was in charge of. Hades, also known as Pluto, was the god of the underworld, and the word itself indicates unseen, and it also can mean the giver of wealth. So it makes sense because if he was in the underworld, generally the behind the scenes guy, not seen, but kind of like playing off of Fortune's wheel, as I've mentioned in different circles before, pardon the pun, about the wheel in the sky or having a luck. So if you brag about it, you end up on the destitute part of things, and if you're sad and you're upset about how little you have, then Fortune's wheel will spin to give you more wealth and more prosperity. So always in motion, Fortune's wheel, kind of a play on that. And the underworld had a lot to do with that. It kind of saw your circumstance and could put you back in motion in that wheel in the sky, which is constantly moving. Dionysus, also known as Bacchus, is the god of wine and pleasure. I think he got a pretty good gig, I'm not going to lie. So he's always pictured with grapes or a goblet or some sort of wine cup. Then we move into Hephaestus, also known as Vulcan, the fire god, but patron of craftsmen, and he's more on the volcanic side of things. So his workshop was literally a volcanic workshop, and I know they've played off of this in a lot of movies recently, certainly with Thor when they went to the forge to try and find the new axe and things like that. You see this play around a lot, forged in fire, that kind of idea. So it was using the power of the volcanoes to make whatever craftsman tool in order for living and or war. Hestia, also known as Vesta, is the goddess of the hearth and protector of home and state. I find that interesting because, again, on modern day, when you think about Wonder Woman and Gal Gadot wields this lanyard and the lasso, and she says, I command you by Hestia, which is a whole play on the Amazons and the ancient Greek goddesses, that they're confined to this island. I would have thought more with truth, but it's more protection. So that makes sense because those Amazons are supposed to be the protectors. But it's really hearth and home, so security for your home, if you will. But she always says, I command you by Hestia. Demeter, also known as Ceres in Roman, another god of agriculture, grain, and bread, specifically grains for some reason. Really an outside kind of a guy. And not a person that would be involved in the war side of things, but more in the day-to-day living and provisions, if you will. Poseidon, everybody knows him, also known as Neptune. He was the god of sea and waters, but also horses and earthquakes, which that's a little lesser known. He had a lot of talents. He could shapeshift, obviously wielding the mighty Triton. Had the trident all the time. and he had a lot more power than most of the other gods, and always had the ability to manipulate not just the seas but the creatures within. So you might say a modern day Aquaman. Heracles, aka Hercules. So it's interesting. The Greek spelling is a little bit off compared to the Roman spelling, but they're so similar compared to a completely different name in the most of these situations. He is the god of strength and heroes. So when you think about James Campbell and the hero's journey and that concept of every man going forward to whatever their quest is, you generally think of Hercules. You know, he had to go do this thing, and so much stuff gets in his way. So that's your classic hero, and we as Americans just love a good underdog hero story. Eros, which would be Cupid in Roman world, everybody knows that guy. So carnal love, if you will, arrow to the heart. He could make people fall in love with you and just give you a zing with the heart with an arrow, and then you would fall in love with that person. And last but not least, we have our last two follow-ups. Persephone, also known as Proserpina, is a goddess of agricultural, all things agricultural. Again, with the grain, all about grain, I guess, because it was plentiful from the ground in order, again, for provisions for people to survive. And she ruled the underworld with Hades. She was his wife. So it's rumored that the seasons came about after she was allegedly kidnapped. So Hades would take her back to the underworld, and she would make these cameos. And I guess they showed up 4 times a year because the seasons were attributed to her appearances or not. And last but not least, they can't be wrong, Nike, also known as Victoria, meaning victory. So we have that idea of Nike, just do it, which is a great capitalized slogan for the last 50 years. And, literally victory. So being able to overcome whatever the thing may be. And that's a big shoe to fill. So those are just some gods. I'd say the basic 20, if you will. Of course, there's more, but they are both the Greek and Roman names. A couple of things that I just want to point out. Zeus, Poseidon, Demeter, Hera, Hestia, and Hades were all siblings and all children of Kronos and Rhea. They were the parents. And Kronos, you think, god of time. So there's a whole backstory there, talking about an ungrateful child. But those guys were together. So those were the big six, if you will, and they had a little bit more power than others, and they kind of ran the show. So they were all children of Kronos and Rhea, and it's worth mentioning. The other thing that comes up a lot, just again in terms of quick modern day example, I always like the band Styx. Well, the river Styx was supposedly the separation between our world and the underworld. And Charon was the gatekeeper, if you will. He was the ferryman that you had to pay to get across from the earthly side to the underworld side. And very often you see coins placed over the eyelids of the dead so that when Charon came to collect, if you will, kind of a Grim Reaper, but not quite, he would take that payment to cross the body over to the underworld. And if there wasn't a payment, then that person was left to wander, kind of lost in between zones. You see a nod to this in The Matrix when Neo is shot, and then in the end, he's sort of in a coma, but not. He can't get from the trainman area. A nod to Johnny Depp in the movie From Hell. He is talking about Jack the Ripper. The whole movie is centered on Jack the Ripper, and he puts coins in his hand for his partner to find in the end of the movie, and he places them over his eyes because he would do that throughout the victims all throughout the movie. So again, just some modern day examples where you would see this, but I just always had an affinity for the band Styx. However, that's where it came from. So it's kind of neat that you would think about a separation of one side to the other, and that's how you got there, the ferryman, if you will. So these are just some explanations of what you probably see a lot of. They use different names for things or references with everything in Greek and Roman mythology, and it's commonplace in our world, but maybe you didn't stop to think about where it came from or how that background originated. If you liked what you heard, then please give us a listen at eclecticcollectionpodcast.com, or you could certainly listen to us on your preferred platform. I'd like to give a quick plug to take a look at our newest, latest, and greatest YouTube channel, Mysterious Morsels, which I don't talk enough about and should. So if you like my content, then you'll probably get a kick out of this, and you'll see a little more of the visual stylistics of my wonderful sound engineer, Kevin, who puts everything together, because we all know I am incapable. So therefore, take a look at Mysterious Morsels when you have time, and that is on YouTube, and hopefully we'll be back with much more content that you can absorb and have fun at cocktail parties with, that you could share and say, hey, you know what I heard the other day, with no background Googling necessary. I'm Terry Tenaglia. Thanks for listening.